Welcome back to Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. In a bit of a surprising turn, President Donald Trump said that he was actually fine with Republicans in the House voting to release the long-suppressed Epstein Files. This, of course, being in stark contrast to just about everything he said about the Epstein Files since he took office, when he wasn't calling it a Democrat fabrication or entirely denying that those files existed at all. Many thought this recent government shutdown was purposely orchestrated and seemingly indefinitely extended by Republicans to prevent release of the Epstein files by preventing the swearing in of Representative Adelita Grijalva, because hers was the necessary 218th vote to push for the release of these files. Trump's constant denials and delay tactics to having them released was entirely on brand. So this reversal of that position really isn't. Trump and his Republicans spent way too long denying and delaying and denying and delaying, just suddenly flipping for him to say, yeah, okay, it's fine. Go vote on it. Definitely felt like something was up. One of the concerns a lot of people had was that even if they did vote on it, even if they did pass it, and now it went to the president for approval to get them released, Donald Trump would do what Donald Trump always does, and he would veto it, so it would just never happen. The whole endeavor would just die right there. They, of course, didn't want that to happen, but in their mind, that made sense. That was an expected outcome. So Donald Trump encouraging Republicans to vote for their release really wasn't. But in a recent social media post, President Trump said, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party. If House Republicans seemingly have the approval of their great leader to vote for it, they're expected to vote Tuesday on legislation that would compel the Justice Department to publicly release all materials related to the Epstein case, which I suppose means it would pass the House, which would mean it would then go to the Senate and then ultimately to the president's desk. So even if it does get out of the House, it's no guarantee that it will make all the additional hurdles to actually get the Justice Department to release those files. Like so many other things in government, there's a solid chance that this could very easily stall in the Senate, because even though all 214 Democratic representatives and 4 Republican representatives signed on to this discharge petition, Senate Republicans may not be as permissive. So while they managed to get just enough Republicans on board to get it going in the House, the Senate is another matter entirely. Whatever future it has in the Senate aside, I think the question on many people's mind is, wait, Trump's okay with this? What's his angle? Because there has to be something for him to suddenly tell his Republican minions in the House to vote for it, even though he spent such a long time stonewalling and denying. Seems almost suspicious. It could be some of that typical Trump narcissism bubbling up and him just wanting to look like he's the one in control. They did manage to get 4 Republicans to sign on to this discharge petition, so it could just be President Trump wanting to act like he is not only fine with them breaking ranks with their fellow House Republicans, but actually he wants them to. As a man who constantly needs to be the one in control, can't allow anyone to believe that he's not totally in control of all Republicans. It's just about everything he says and does. This could just be about projecting an appearance of strength and power in the face of what appears to be a possible slight loosening on his grip on his complete control over the Republican Party. Also, his claim that he's got nothing to hide rings a bit false, because as we all know, he's got a lot to hide. That's what this whole thing's been about, seemingly. Constantly calling it a Democratic hoax and denying it even existed in the first place. It seemed clear to many that nobody would be that hardcore against something being released unless there was something in there that they didn't want people to see. The longer and harder he pushed against the release of Epstein files, the clearer it became that he had something he wanted to prevent from being publicly known. Or to put it even more simply, he was definitely not acting like an innocent man. So for the guy who very clearly had something to hide to publicly say he had nothing to hide, something didn't seem right, leaving some to wonder if when he said he had nothing to hide, the word that he left out was anymore. And his seemingly sudden and abrupt acceptance of a possible release of these files is because he was confident the incriminating parts that implicated him were already scrubbed from whatever they'd release. If you remember back in September, a covertly recorded video had a Department of Justice official claiming that if anything was released on the Epstein files, all of the Republican or conservative names would have been redacted, leaving only Democratic names unredacted, allowing Trump to say, "See, your favorite president is totally innocent, but look at all these Democrats, awful people. They tried to tell you that I was involved in things, but look at this. Clearly, those were all lies from the radical left," therefore exonerating himself in the eyes of at least his hardcore supporters. Once again, it's all about controlling the narrative. Even if the evidence says you're guilty, alter the evidence until it doesn't. Then come out and say, "See, I was innocent all along." Obviously, it's hard to know if literally every Republican, including Donald Trump's name, has been redacted out of these files. But I do think it's probably safe to assume that what they do end up releasing, if they ever end up releasing anything, will be heavily redacted. Someone who is seemingly this afraid of these files coming out probably doesn't reverse course and push for their coming out unless he's pretty sure that whatever is going to be released isn't going to be damaging to him. The question now is, how accurate is that assumption? Will President Trump really be able to once again escape what to many felt like the most damning and possibly presidency-ending accusations? Would the probably heavily redacted Epstein files really just exonerate him? My thought is maybe, but leading towards no. To his faithful, President Trump says that he was a completely innocent man being witch-hunted by the evil and dastardly Democrats and liberals. That's enough for them, but for the rest of us, it's not quite that simple. It's not just a matter of many people wanting to believe he's guilty. Genuinely clinging to the belief that he isn't seems increasingly more difficult. One of the things that insulated Donald Trump from any political harm was his seemingly impenetrable wall of supporters. As long as they believed in him and protected him, he was untouchable. But the cracks in that armor are absolutely starting to show. The fact that 4 Republicans signed on to the disclosure agreement in the House seems to signal that he's losing his unwavering support even within the hardest core part of his own party. Some seemingly already positioning themselves for a post-Trump Republican Party, but possibly even more damaging than losing support from his fellow Republicans in government. I think he's lost a lot of the regular people, and a lot of those who weren't before are coming on board with the realization that, yeah, maybe Donald Trump is guilty of all these things. Maybe when those on the left were saying he was a bad guy, they were right, and he is a bad guy. There's a very good chance that the more redacted the eventual released files are, the less believed and trusted they're going to be. It's hard to justify a claim that you have nothing to hide when you're releasing documents that are mostly black lines because you've hidden a lot of things on them. The mistrust many already hold will only be amplified. Trump is already seeing a lot of his loyal, die-hard MAGA supporters turning on him because they've come to the realization that he is not the man they thought he was. Or the darker claims against him may have some validity after all. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people have been expecting. We may be reaching a point where even his Republican allies are unable to deny the reality in front of them and decide Donald Trump really isn't their guy after all. Many have hoped that the Epstein file release would be the final nail in the Donald Trump coffin, and he would finally not be able to escape justice, and this would be the beginning of the end of the Donald Trump regime. But at the same time, this wouldn't be the first time we thought, yep, we got him this time, only for him to slip through and escape once again. This time it really does feel different. He's losing support in places that you thought before could never be touched. His MAGA base is eroding, and he's losing the support of his Republican allies in the government. There's a growing sense that this really could be it. This really could be the thing. The moment that everything really does go wrong for Donald Trump and his presidency is doomed. But before we pop the champagne and celebrate the end of the Donald Trump presidency, it's important to remember that the race isn't won just yet. As I mentioned before, it could very easily stall in the Senate, thereby killing any momentum his files have to be released. But it also feels like a spark has been lit, a spark that could light a fire that not even Donald Trump will be able to put out once it gets really going. What comes next for the Epstein Files is yet to be determined. Will they ever be released at all? If they are released, are they going to be so blacked out that you can't really use them to prove Donald Trump's guilt definitively and unequivocally? We just don't know yet. I, for one, am hopeful, but cautiously so. Things are going in a good direction, the right direction. And maybe the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein isn't done seeking justice. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time, when I cut you off another slice of news.